Some games are good, some are average, and some are something far beyond that. They're perfect, and they're never forgotten. Even years after playing them, they stay somewhere in your mind. In this video, I've listed the 19 best games ever made. If you're ready, let's get started. Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert feels like the kind of game developers have been trying to make for years. It doesn't do absolutely everything perfectly, but the sheer number of things it lets you do is genuinely impressive. After the success of Black Desert Online, Pearl Abyss set out to create a massive action RPG with a huge open world, and the result is one of the most ambitious games we've seen in recent years. The combat is easily one of its biggest strengths. Whether you prefer heavy, hard-hitting attacks or fast, fluid combos, the game gives you plenty of freedom to fight your way. But combat is only half the experience. If you're the type of player who loves wandering off the main path, Crimson Desert is packed with hidden locations, secrets, and side activities that reward exploration. Every corner of the world feels like it has something waiting to be discovered. It's definitely a game that sparked a lot of debate, but if you've played it, let me know what you think, because this one has become one of the most talked about RPGs of the year. Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those games that's incredibly close to being perfect. Sure, there are still things that could have been done better, but it's hard to deny that it's become one of the best RPGs of the last few years. Unlike some open-world games that focus on sheer size, Cyberpunk focuses on quality, and Night City might be one of the most immersive cities ever created in gaming. Every district has its own identity, its own culture, and its own atmosphere. Simply driving through the city at night while neon lights reflect off the rain-soaked streets is an experience on its own. What really makes Cyberpunk stand out is the freedom it gives you. You can become a stealthy netrunner, a walking tank, a cyber-enhanced gunslinger, or even a blade-wielding cyber samurai. The way you approach combat is entirely up to you. The life path system doesn't impact the story as much as many players hoped, but between the incredible visuals, memorable characters, and satisfying gameplay, Cyberpunk 2077 remains one of the most impressive open-world RPGs available today. Resident Evil 4 Remake. As someone who grew up playing the original Resident Evil 4, I honestly wasn't sure a remake could capture what made that game special. Then Capcom proved me wrong. Resident Evil 4 Remake somehow manages to stay faithful to the original while modernizing almost every aspect of the experience. It keeps the pacing, atmosphere, and tension that made the original legendary, but updates the gameplay in ways that make it feel fresh and modern. Combat feels smoother, movement feels better, and the visual upgrade is absolutely stunning. Every village, castle, and enemy encounter looks incredible. And Leon Kennedy, he's still one of the coolest protagonists in gaming. Whether you're a longtime fan or someone who's never touched the original, Resident Evil 4 Remake is one of those games that deserves a place on every gamer's playlist. It's a masterclass in how to remake a classic. And if you're enjoying the video so far, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel and lets me make more content like this. When IO Interactive announced they were making a James Bond game after the Hitman series, my expectations were already high. After playing First Light, I can honestly say it exceeded them. Instead of giving us the polished, legendary Bond we're familiar with, the game starts with a younger and far less experienced version of the character. Watching him develop into the world's greatest spy becomes one of the most rewarding parts of the entire experience. What makes the game shine is player freedom. Just like Hitman, there isn't only one solution to a mission. You can sneak through a location unnoticed, manipulate people through social engineering, or take a more direct approach when things go wrong. Every mission feels like a puzzle waiting to be solved your own way. The combination of stealth, espionage, storytelling, and player choice creates one of the most authentic James Bond experiences we've ever seen in gaming. If you've played it already, let me know where it ranks among your favorite spy games. God of War Ragnarok. God of War 2018 was already an incredible game, so Santa Monica Studio had an almost impossible task with Ragnarok. Somehow they pulled it off. While many fans still debate which game is better, Ragnarok expands almost everything that made the first game great. The story is bigger, the world is larger, and the gameplay feels more refined from beginning to end. The 9 realms are packed with detail and variety, making exploration constantly rewarding. One moment you're solving puzzles in ancient ruins, and the next you're standing in the middle of an epic battlefield that feels ripped straight out of Norse mythology. Combat is where Ragnarok truly shines. The Leviathan axe remains one of the most satisfying weapons in gaming, and the Blades of Chaos are as fun as ever. Every weapon feels powerful, every upgrade feels meaningful, and every boss battle feels like an event. If you've never played Ragnarok, you're missing one of the best action-adventure games of the modern era. It's the kind of game that reminds you why you fell in love with gaming in the first place. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If there's one game that reminded me why I fell in love with RPG RPGs in the first place, it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. For many fans, this might be the strongest Final Fantasy ever made, and after spending time with it, it's easy to see why. Leaving Midgar behind and stepping into the wider world feels incredible. The sense of scale, freedom, and adventure is something very few games manage to capture this well. Combat is fast, stylish, and surprisingly deep. Every party member feels unique, with their own abilities and playstyles, which keeps battles fresh from beginning to end. What really surprised me, though, was the amount of variety packed into the world. One minute you're exploring beautiful landscapes, and the next you're getting distracted by a surprisingly addictive minigame. Even if you've never touched a Final Fantasy game before, Rebirth is a fantastic place to start. The original Hades completely changed what people expected from roguelikes, and somehow Hades 2 manages to raise the bar again. That's something very few sequels can pull off. This time you play as Melino, fighting against the Titans in a darker and more mysterious journey than Zagreus ever faced. The new magic system, expanded boon combinations, and deeper progression mechanics give players far more freedom when creating builds. Every run feels different, and experimenting is constantly rewarded. The world itself feels richer too, with stronger connections between Olympus and the underworld, and a larger cast of gods and characters influencing your adventure. Visually, it's even more stunning than the first game, with a darker fantasy atmosphere that never loses its charm. It might not be for everyone, but if the genre clicks with you, Hades' Sicken is incredibly hard to put down. Alan Wake 2. At this point, Remedy has built a reputation for making unforgettable experiences, and Alan Wake 2 might be their masterpiece. This isn't just a horror game, it's a psychological mystery wrapped inside a mind-bending narrative that constantly keeps you guessing. From a technical standpoint, it's one of the most impressive games ever released. The lighting, reflections, and environmental detail create scenes that often look almost indistinguishable from reality. Whether you're exploring the forests around Bright Falls or descending deeper into the nightmare-like dark place, the atmosphere pulls you in immediately. What makes Alan Wake 2 special isn't just how it looks. Playing through both Alan's and Saga Anderson's stories gives you two very different perspectives on the same mystery, and watching those narratives slowly intertwine is fascinating. It's strange, creative, unsettling, and one of the most memorable games of recent years. Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to make a bold statement. Baldur's Gate 3 isn't just one of the best RPGs ever made. It might genuinely be one of the best games ever made, period. Larian Studios took the complexity and freedom of Dungeons & Dragons and somehow translated it into a video game that feels limitless. Every choice matters. Every conversation can go in unexpected directions. Every quest can be solved in ways the developers somehow accounted for. It's the kind of game that constantly surprises you. The companions feel like real people with their own motivations, flaws, and stories, and the camp scenes often become just as memorable as the major battles. The craziest part is that even after finishing the game once, you've probably seen only a fraction of what it offers. I usually don't spend hundreds of hours in this genre, yet Baldur's Gate 3 kept pulling me back. If a game can do that, it's doing something extraordinary. Some games are fun, some games are beautiful. ORI and The Will of the Wisps somehow manages to be both at the same time. Moon Studios took everything that worked in Blind Forest and improved it. Movement feels smoother, combat is more satisfying, and the world is larger, richer, and far more rewarding to explore. Few games make simple movement feel this good. Jumping, gliding, dashing, and chaining abilities together becomes incredibly satisfying once you master it. Visually, it's one of the most stunning platformers ever created. Every area feels like a living painting filled with vibrant colors, incredible lighting, and unforgettable scenery. There's also something surprisingly emotional about the entire experience. Even during quiet moments, the game has a way of making you feel hopeful and connected to its world. If you've played Ori, you probably know exactly what I mean. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, different from every other Souls-like game, and that's exactly why it's so special. While most games in the genre focus on slowly reducing health bars, Sekiro is all about breaking your opponent's posture. Every block, deflection, and counterattack builds toward a decisive moment where skill and timing are rewarded in spectacular fashion. Once the combat system finally clicks, the game transforms into something truly incredible. What's fascinating is how death changes meaning. Instead of feeling like failure, every defeat becomes a lesson. You start recognizing enemy patterns, improving your reactions, and understanding the mechanics on a deeper level. Few games make improvement feel this satisfying. The world itself is equally memorable. Set in a brutal version of Sengoku-era Japan, it's filled with breathtaking environments, dangerous enemies, and unforgettable boss fights. It's beautiful, unforgiving, and one of From Software's greatest achievements. Slay the Spire 2. Very few games can make you lose track of time as easily as Slay the Spire 2. The original game practically defined the deck-building roguelike genre, And somehow the sequel manages to make that formula even more addictive. Every run starts with a simple deck, but before long you're creating absurd card combinations that can completely break the game in the most satisfying ways possible. One run might turn you into an unstoppable damage machine, while the next revolves entirely around defense, poison, or mechanics you didn't even know could work together. What makes the game special is that failure never feels frustrating. Every defeat teaches you something new, and every run leaves you thinking, I know exactly what I'll try next time. The art style remains simple and easy to read, but underneath that simplicity is one of the deepest strategy games you'll ever play. Few games have mastered the just one more run feeling this well. Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Death Stranding 2 takes everything people loved about the first game and expands it into something bigger, more confident, and far more ambitious. At first glance, delivering cargo across massive landscapes might sound simple, but once you're out there crossing mountains, deserts, rivers, and storm-ravaged terrain, you realize the journey itself is the gameplay. Every route becomes a puzzle. Every successful delivery feels earned. The sequel gives players far more tools to work with. Vehicles are more versatile, combat has significantly more depth, and the world feels more reactive than before. Yet the most memorable moments still happen during the quiet parts. Standing alone on a cliff while looking across an endless landscape creates a feeling very few games can replicate. Visually, it's breathtaking. The Decima engine continues to deliver some of the most realistic environments ever seen in gaming, while the character models are so detailed that cutscenes often look indistinguishable from live action. For fans of the first game, this is exactly the evolution they were hoping for. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Most RPGs give you dragons, magic, and legendary heroes. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 gives you something much rarer, a world that feels genuinely real. Set in 15th century Bohemia, this game throws you into a living medieval society where your actions have consequences, and every victory feels earned. You're not a chosen one, you're not a magical warrior, you're simply trying to survive in a world that doesn't care about you. Combat is intentionally demanding. Sword fights feel heavy, dangerous, and unpredictable. At first it can seem overwhelming, but once the mechanics click, every duel becomes incredibly rewarding. Winning a difficult fight feels less like defeating a boss, and more like surviving an actual battle. The world itself is astonishing. Villages wake up and go to sleep, merchants follow daily routines, and entire towns react to your reputation. Combined with some of the most impressive environmental visuals in modern RPGs, the result is a game that completely immerses you in its historical setting. If you love realism in open-world games, few experiences come close. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. The Last of Us Part 2 was already one of the most technically impressive games ever made, and the remastered version pushes that experience even further. The first thing you'll notice is how incredible the world looks on modern hardware. Rain-soaked streets, dense forests, detailed character animations, and realistic lighting make every scene feel almost cinematic. Sometimes you'll stop moving forward, just to admire how natural everything looks. But what really keeps players engaged is the gameplay. The combat remains some of the best in the genre. Every encounter feels tense because enemies communicate, adapt, and force you to constantly rethink your approach. Whether you're sneaking through abandoned buildings or desperately fighting for survival, every encounter feels dynamic and unpredictable. The new No Return mode highlights just how strong these mechanics really are. By putting players into randomized combat scenarios with different characters and playstyles, it turns the game's excellent combat system into an endlessly replayable experience. Love the story or hate it, the craftsmanship behind this game is impossible to ignore. Sometimes a game doesn't need an emotional story or complex mechanics to be unforgettable. Astro Bot is proof of that. It's pure fun from the moment you pick up the controller. And honestly, very few games capture the joy of gaming this well. Every level introduces a new idea, a new mechanic, or a new surprise before the previous one has a chance to get old. One minute you're surfing across giant waves, and the next you're shrinking, flying, or interacting with the environment in ways you didn't expect. The creativity never stops. What truly makes Astro Bot special is how connected it feels to the DualSense controller. You can feel raindrops tapping against Astro's tiny body, sand crunching beneath his feet, and the resistance of gadgets through the adaptive triggers. It sounds like a small detail, but it makes the world feel incredibly alive. Visually, the game is bright, colorful, and packed with personality. Every level feels like a celebration of video games. And for PlayStation fans, spotting familiar characters and references constantly puts a smile on your face. It's one of the happiest games released in years. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle does something most licensed games struggle to achieve. It makes you genuinely feel like you're stepping into the shoes of the character. From the moment the adventure begins, you're not just watching Indiana Jones, you're becoming him. Exploring ancient ruins, solving mysterious puzzles, sneaking past enemies, and using the iconic whip all feel natural and satisfying. The first-person perspective turns every discovery into something personal, making hidden tombs and forgotten temples feel far more immersive than they would from a distance. The journey takes you across the globe, from dusty deserts and ancient catacombs catacombs to snowy mountains and crowded cities, every location feels handcrafted and filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. The puzzles are especially strong because they don't just test your logic, they encourage you to observe your surroundings like an archaeologist. Visually, the game captures the feeling of classic adventure films perfectly. Whether you're escaping danger by seconds or uncovering a centuries-old mystery, it constantly delivers that sense of excitement that made Indiana Jones famous in the first place. Elden Ring. Elden Ring isn't just an open-world game, it's one of those rare experiences that completely changes what players expect from the genre. The moment you step into the lands between, you're given something most modern games are afraid to offer: complete freedom. There are no giant arrows telling you where to go, and no endless tutorials holding your hand. Instead, curiosity becomes your guide. Every direction leads to something memorable. You might discover a hidden dungeon, stumble into a terrifying boss fight, or find an area so beautiful that you stop moving just to admire it. The world constantly rewards exploration, which makes every discovery feel like it belongs to you rather than the game simply giving it to you. Combat is challenging but incredibly satisfying. Every victory feels earned, and every boss becomes a puzzle you slowly learn to solve. Combined with hundreds of weapons, spells, and build options, the game gives players an enormous amount of freedom in how they approach challenges. What makes Elden Ring truly special is the feeling it creates: wonder, fear, excitement, curiosity. They're all present almost every time you ride toward the horizon. Very few games make exploration feel this magical. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart feels like playing a high-budget animated movie that you somehow control yourself. The first thing that grabs your attention is the speed. Thanks to the PS5's hardware, the game can instantly jump between completely different dimensions without loading screens, and it never stops being impressive. One second you're fighting robots in a futuristic city, and the next you're standing in a totally different universe. Combat is where the game truly shines. The weapon arsenal is as creative as ever, filled with gadgets that transform enemies into plants, unleash miniature tornadoes, or create complete chaos across the battlefield. Every weapon levels up as you use it, constantly rewarding experimentation and making combat feel exciting from beginning to end. Visually, it's one of the most stunning games available on PlayStation. The lighting, particle effects, animations, and world detail often look closer to a Pixar movie than a traditional video game. Combined with the charming story of Ratchet, Clank, and Rivet, the result is an adventure that's fun, fast-paced, and impossible not to enjoy.